Okay. So today we are so blessed to have the legendary Jane Elliott with us. Thank you so much for joining us today, Jane.
Well, thank you, and you're most welcome, and thank you for having me.
Did you do the stitch work in the back of the fist, the raised fist? That's really cool.
No, somebody sent that to me, and the woman who sent it to me was a Japanese woman, and I told her that we all came from Africa, and when I was arguing with her at my daughter's house, and she said, "No, we didn't." She said, I didn't come from Africa." I said, "Go home, do your DNA, get your DNA done, trace it back as far as you can, and then call me." So she went home, she got her DNA done, and she sent me a letter saying, "You were right. My family, I traced my family back, and we were one of the first Afro-Asian families on the face of the earth."
Wow.
Yeah, isn't that something? That young Japanese woman sat there and was determined that she didn't have any black, and then she found out that she did, and that's when I got this raised fist thing from her.
That's pretty sweet. So you've
Yeah, I
been,
think I think she learned something very valuable there. She
yeah.
learned that Peking man, all of Java man, Peking man, Neanderthal man disappeared several thousand years after Homo sapiens arrived on the earth because they weren't strong enough to fight the Homo sapien evidently gene. So we're all Homo sapiens. We're all from those first what we call black people who arrived on the face of the earth 300,000 500,000 years ago. And that's why black women are so important in civilization. You were here when it began, and because you have enough melanin to protect your cells from the damaging rays of the sun, you will be here long after the rest of us are gone. Because as the hole in the ozone layer gets larger and more sunlight is allowed to enter our environment, more and more people of my color, which is not white, I'm melanemic, there's no doubt about it, I'm not white, but more and more of us are going to die of melanoma or other sun related cancers. But people of color are going to be here much longer.
Wow. I never thought of it that
Yeah.
way.
Well, think of it that way. So you have to get in the position of knowing enough and being willing enough to run this show because you're going to be the ones who are going to be running the show. That's the way it is. You have to remember that only 25% of the population of the United States, of the world, only 20% of the population of the world is identified or classified as white. 25%. Now think about that.
Wow.
And they've been running this show for how many years? Ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. Think of how wonderful things might have been if 500 years ago, white people, what we call white people, hadn't decided that we were perfect.
Mm.
Yeah, could have made a big difference. It could have made a big difference in the progress of civilization.
I see you just jump right on in. I love it. Oh.
You know, this is the way I see it, and nobody else has to see it this way. But if you lived through the years of the Holocaust and watched what Hitler did, and I did because I was born the year he came to power. I watched what he did for 12 years until 1945 at the end of the Second World War. What has been happening in the last 3.5 years in this company is exactly what happened from 1933 to 1945 after Adolf Hitler came to power. This man is using as his plan for governing what Hitler did.
Mm.
And if you aren't my age, you don't recognize it. But if you are my age, you recognize it and you are absolutely infuriated by it because I've seen this before.
Yeah.
Those who forget the mistakes of the past are doomed to repeat them. I don't know who said that, but whoever said it was right. And that's what is happening in this country right now because these young people don't know anything about the Holocaust or how it started or what Hitler did. They don't know because they maybe had a paragraph in their social studies books, maybe as much as a whole page in their history book, but nobody ever said to them, "Let me show you how it feels to live under Hitler." And
Mm.
if somebody had done that to these young people, they would have recognized what this fool is doing and they would have put a stop to him.
Yeah. So that also goes back into like your a bit of how you began like as a teacher, right? Um,
Absolutely. Absolutely. You cannot teach what you do not know.
yeah.
And our teachers now are young people, most of them under the age of 45 or 50. They have no no recollection and no real knowledge about what can happen when you have somebody who is determined to become a dictator.
Yeah.
And that's what this man is determined to be. And people you need to get the book When at Times the Mob is Swayed by Bert Newborn, because in that book, it'll be on your recorder. You can listen to it later.
Okay.
But in that book, it says that Donald Trump in his younger years kept in a bedside table, in a locked drawer in his bedside table, a book of the writings of Adolf Hitler.
Mm.
So he is patterning, he is doing what he does in the image of his hero, was Adolf Hitler. Now that's scary to me. In fact, it's terrifying to me, because this country is we're foolish, because we haven't had a world war in the last 50, 60 years, 70 years. We haven't had a huge depression, because Barack Obama and the vice president worked us out of that. So these young people don't realize what can happen when you have a real disaster in your country. We haven't lived through anything like that. These young people haven't lived through anything like that. And they don't know what they're talking about, and they don't understand what I'm saying. And I get really impatient with them, because I think your teachers didn't tell you, because your teachers don't know. And the teachers don't know because nobody told them. It's really a tragedy when you allow half of what you should have learned to slide away, because you want to bring kids up to speed on computers and technology. I have to turn off my television just a minute.
Okay. So, when you think of like Black women and how they voted throughout the years, because what particularly comes to mind, because even though they always say that um, women have been able to vote for 100 years, that doesn't include Black women.
That's right. It doesn't. Didn't Black women didn't get the vote till much later than what so-called white women did. And even though we all supposedly have the vote now,
Right.
our vote, our right to vote, is being taken from us one day at a time, because this fool is going to do whatever he or she has to do to see to it that this person gets reelected. And
Yeah.
if that means calling the whole thing a fraudulent exercise and deciding not to answer the will of the people, he'll try to do that. But if we vote in massive numbers, they can't possibly keep that election going the right way. I think we have no choice this year, but everybody of voting age, no matter how young or how old, has to get out there and vote. You have to go to the rest home. You have to pick those people up and take them to vote. You have to be sure that every person who is of voting age votes, and votes the right way this year, because the fate of this nation depends on what happens in the next 5 weeks.
Right.
Yeah, literally.
Yeah. You look back at
And
like.
see, once again, we're asking people of color to save us. There are enough people of color in this country to make this election go in the right direction. So
Mm-hmm.
now, for the first time, we are appealing, for the second, third, 15th time. When we have a war, we take young Black men to fight our war. During wartime, we take lots of young Black men to fight and perhaps die. During peacetime, we make war on Black men.
Mm-hmm.
And we do it deliberately, and we do it with malice aforethought. But right now, we are asking people of color to save our government, to save our civilization, to save our democracy, to save this nation. We cannot, I would hope that melanemic people would realize how important people of color are to this nation right now, because you are a larger and larger share of the population. Within 30 years, white people will be a numerical minority in the United States of America. That's a fact. Demographics show that in 30 years, which would be 2050, right?
Mm-hmm.
White people will be a numerical minority. So we have to depend on people of other color groups now to do the right thing and save this country. And that's what it amounts to. If
Right.
enough people of color vote and the vote for somebody other than Donald Trump, you can be the ones who save this country because you have the numbers, and you have the need to have this country saved. You have the need to have somebody other than Donald Trump in the position of authority. We have proof of that. And when he said last week to the Proud Boys,
Yeah.
stand back, but stand back, but stand by. Stand back, but stand by. In other words, he said to people of color with that announcement, we can come after you, and we will.
Yeah.
We have the power with these ridiculous white supremacists. But you see, white supremacists are really upset right now because of people like me who say, well, you don't exist, fool. There are no white people. Get over it. How can you be supreme when you aren't even white? You are shades of brown. So we're going to have to start calling you, and I call them melanemic because that's what we are. We don't have enough melanin to protect ourselves from the rays of the sun, so we are melanemic. And
Right.
you are melanotic. You've got a lot of melanin in your skin, so you're melanotic. You are melanotic and will live longer than we melanemic people will. And your numbers are increasing, and the numbers of those who are melanemic, our birth rate is down. Yours is up. That is a good thing for all of us. That is a good thing for all of us. Make no mistake about that.
What would you say to what you have definitely called out to be quote unquote white women when it comes to this election and their vote this year?
Their futures depend on how they vote this year too, because our present administration's attitude toward women is, prehistoric.
Yeah.
You just do not treat people, women, the way he treats women, and the way he encourages people to treat women, and the way the members of the Proud Boys treat women. And the fact that they call themselves the Proud Boys tells you all you need to know.
Right.
They're boys, and they're proud of it. And so is the boy in the White House, a boy, and he's proud of it. But you have to remember that what you want to be by your side when you're in a mess is a man. If you need a male, you want a man. You don't want a boy.
Right.
You don't want a boy. And that word is the word that we have used to infantilize black males for the last 300 years in this country.
Right.
When I have to tell somebody how to spell my email address, and I say B-L-I, they say, you say B as in boy. I say, no, I didn't say B as in boy. And I don't think you ever will either again, because B is the word that we have used, the boy is the word that we have used to infantilize black men for the last 300 years in this country. Don't use boy. If that's the only word you can think of that begins with B, you have a very limited vocabulary. Oh, I'm sorry, I never thought of it. Well, think of it. Think of another word. B as in beautiful. Okay, so then they use B as in beautiful instead of B as in boy. It's time for us to change our language. And when somebody walks up to me, some innocent, no, they aren't innocent, they're just ignorant, white, pale-faced woman walks up to me and says, I'm colorblind, I don't see color. I'm supposed to say, oh, that's so wonderful, how liberal of you. But I don't say that. I say, I knew that before you told me, because if you saw color, you wouldn't wear that shirt with those pants. And then she gets... And then she gets all upset and angry and almost runs away from me because she did not want to hear that. She said, you don't understand what I'm saying. I say, I understand exactly what you're saying. You're saying to me that you have to ignore the largest organ on a person's body, inch by inch. The skin is the largest organ on your body. And you can ignore it in order to speak to somebody who is of a color different from your own. Well, I don't think of it that way. I said, no, you just said 3 words that I believe. I don't think. I said, that's your problem. You don't think because you're melanemic and you don't have to. You just expect everyone to understand that you don't mean anything by it. That is pure male bovine excrement.
It's a nice way to put it, male bovine.
That's what it is. That's what it is. And I don't want to be unpleasant here, but that's what it is. And if you don't believe that's what's going on, then you have to remember that the fly during the vice presidential debate let on, the biggest pile of male bovine excrement at, at the debate. I thought that was delightful. I thought, now there's a fly who knows what it wants. Anyway, as you were saying, what was the question? see, the whole thing is ridiculous. We keep saying this is BS, and the fly lands on the vice president. So even the insects, even the insect know. And there's a meme out there. There's a meme out there with Ruth Bader Ginsburg. There she sits, this prissy woman, and under it says, "I sent the fly." That priceless. I think that's wonderful. I say thank you, RBG. Oh, thank you. Even she knew